Now then, guys, welcome back to the Cycle Sunday podcast. A massive apologies for missing 2 weeks, but we will come to that very shortly. But sat beside my good friend, Mr. Paul Bowker, we have a special guest who we've talked about before several times, but it's good to have you on. Richard, although we just found out that everyone except Mr. Bowker there calls you Rusty.
That is correct. Hello.
Hello. So we'll call you whatever you want, mate.
Let's start with that. We'll see how we do.
Yeah, for those listening and those watching, now, if you tune in regularly to the Cycle Sunday podcast, you may well remember a few weeks ago now, in fact, it's probably about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, we had a conversation about a cycling nut that Paul knows and tried to help him think about what the perfect next cycling car might be, because sadly he was having to get rid of his Quadrifoglio Alfa Romeo. And that is the gentleman sat next to you, is it not, Paul?
It absolutely is. Yes. This is Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee. Rusty
No.
Lee.
Rusty Lee. Not like the chef.
Like
no.
The chef.
Not
cooking.
the chef. No.
Okay. So, so just a quick one about the last couple of weeks. Clearly, we're very sorry that we didn't do a podcast the last 2 weeks. It's mainly my fault because I was in Africa, in Morocco last week. And the run up to that going away was just mad. So we didn't have the opportunity to record a podcast. So apologies for that. But we've got lots and lots of very exciting stuff happening, not just in the podcast, but Cycle Sunday's coming back, because in 2 weeks' time, I shall be driving up to Criterium Cycles,
And we
to the
can't
amazing
wait.
bike shop to build the bike. Because if you follow either Criterium Cycles on social channels or my social channels, we finally, after months and months of waiting, got all the things we need to build my Bianchi Ultra XR4.
It's all here.
I do have a point of order.
Yes.
There was you put a social media post out. I think it was you, Paul, with the bike bits. Now, I'm no expert, but there were bits missing off that picture. Like, don't bikes have two wheels?
Like a wheel, I know.
Yeah.
The amount of people, seriously, considering he is such Mr. OCD, the fact he didn't put both wheels on and the saddle wasn't on there either, there were some significant bits missing, mate, to be honest.
Right. Can I just get this sorted right now for all of you?
Yes.
Those of you who know how to do a Facebook and an Instagram post, you are in a 1-to-1 aspect ratio as opposed to 16:9. So to try...
Not necessarily, but yes.
Yeah, yes, if you want to make a really nice one, okay?
Yeah.
To try and fit a bike deconstructed nicely into a 1-to-1 ratio, go and make it happen, right?
Okay, all right. But it was a fairly glaring omission that almost everybody that looked at that picture on social media picked up. Is it going to be a unicycle?
Well, at least it gave those people something to talk about, wasn't it? No, it's not a unicycle. It's a bicycle, everybody.
We're just taking the mick. Don't get precious.
Yeah.
But no, so we've got everything. So as I said, I come up to Edinburgh a couple of weeks' time. We've got so many things and not actually a great deal of time, because we're going to build the bike. We're going to, hopefully, if the weather's nice, do the first ride of the bike. I'm also going to pick up my Trek Rail 9.5, which is so exciting. My full suspension e-bike. Yeah. And then I've got to try and work out how the hell I'm going to get them all home. Which is a bit of a challenge, because I'd quite like to bring up Tracy's e-bike as well to fit a dropper seat post.
Yeah.
Have you ever reviewed a Ford Transit van? You can drive that back in review.
Funny you should say that. Actually, I've actually going to be borrowing a very, very cool bright yellow Ford Transit. Is it the MST, the funky sporty range one?
Yeah, it's the MSRT version. So
it's got OZ racing wheels and everything.
Yeah. The only thing is that whoever spec'd that particular van, it's a short wheelbase crew van.
Oh.
And the problem is that the boot area is actually, it was bigger in the Kia Sorento that you had earlier. Hello.
Paul, can I just give you a point of order?
Yes.
This podcast goes out the week before I pick up that van. So don't be mean about it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. It's very cool.
It's
very cool looking.
I'm not decrying that.
And we will get everything in there if it kills me. So I'm not worried about it. But yeah, so I am actually going to be driving up in a van. So I will be doing a full review of the MSRT bright yellow OZ racing wheel, very cool looking transit van.
Yes.
So again. So that's very exciting. We're most looking forward to that. But let us come to the topic for this evening's podcast. And one of the reasons we got Rusty on, Richard, whichever one you want to be called, I don't mind, is you are, by all accounts, having never met you before, apart from right now, a complete petrol head, and your car history kind of indicates that. But you're also a complete bike nut because you've got some very, very nice bikes.
Yes, but it's interesting. Like I wouldn't class myself as a petrol head. I like cars. I don't know very much about cars. I like the cars I like, and I know which ones I like. If you see what I mean.
But you've got good taste in cars.
I like to think so. Yes.
Yeah, you've got really good taste in cars.
But yeah, the bike thing, that's a very new to me thing. I mean, that's probably only 5 years, 6 years I've really got into bikes, and it's been all downhill since then, really.
It's an expensive downhill to go as well. So should we have a chat about one of the things we thought about having a conversation about was why there's this crossover between people who love nice cars and people who love nice bikes. And I guess the interesting thing is there's also obviously there are people who like cars and hate bikes, and people who like bikes and hate cars. So we're going to ignore those two groups of people and just concentrate on the ones that love both, because it's less controversial. So what is it for you, Rusty, that you love about bikes and performance bikes? Because do you want to just talk through the listeners what bikes you've got or had? Because you've got some really nice ones that are very similar to the bikes I've got in my garage.
Yes,
or will have soon.
So I've got a Bianchi Intenso. That's the old Ultegra one. That 2018, I think I got that one.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the first bike of note. Is
that an enduro bike or a what style of bike?
Yeah, so the Intenso is an endurance geometry bike. So if it was a countervail Bianchi, it would be the equivalent of the Infinito CV. But the Intenso, it's a lovely frame actually.
It's really nice.
Yeah. So that was really nice, and that was the first bike you got from Criterium, wasn't it? That was the meeting.
Yes. So I came in for a service on another bike I had, and then came away with a new bike.
Yes.
That's not the first time that's happened. It wasn't the last time.
No.
Definitely wasn't the last time.
And you got an Ultegra group set?
Yes. Yeah, really, really nice. I've done a few sportifs on it, and it's just really comfy. You're just sitting on it all day. It's no problems at all. Love it.
Yeah.
But it was
awesome.
Bit annoying though, because it was one of the first disc brakes, I think, on Bianchis, and they had the weird through axle size.
Am I allowed to tell the story?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Can I tell the story fully?
Yes.
Will Anna be
this
listening?
Looks like it's painful.
Probably.
Will Anna really want to know the full story?
There's no secrets.
Okay, wonderful. Right.
There's no secrets. We can talk in bike pounds if that's needed.
Yes.
Well, we won't mention money at all in this. It's we're not going to be that vulgar. But this, if ever you wanted to understand Richard, this typifies Richard. So, Richard bought the Intenso disc. Now, at the time, disc brake through axle standards was going through a VHS Betamax time. And eventually we've settled on the front end on a road bike being 100 mil wide with a 12 millimeter diameter, and on the back 142 millimeters wide with a 12 mil axle. But at the time, Richard's Intenso had 135 millimeter as opposed to the 142. But Richard wanted a new set of wheels for his Intenso. So he ordered a new set of wheels, and we, admittedly, completely forgot, because it was a few years old now, that this particular bike had this different through axle. So we got the wheels ready, we offered them up to the bike, and they clearly didn't fit. But Richard has had his eye on your other bike. I'm going to let you introduce the other bike.
So that's my Ultra XR4.
Good bike.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it had this eye on this Ultra XR4, and I said, Richard, I'm really, really sorry. These wheels aren't going to fit. You know, but I do have the Ultra you've had your eye on for a while. And he went, I need to go and speak to Anna. And I said, okay, that's fine. He came back and he said, yeah, I'm going to take it. I'm going, great, excellent. I'm really pleased because he's a flipping weapon on a bike. So I knew on this, I was never able to keep up with him before. So I knew on this bike, there'd be no chance. But then just as a bit of a shot across the bows, because we got these other wheels ready for him, and that was the thing that the particular spec of Ultra XR4 was just missing, was a really nice wheel set. I said, you know, Richard, I know you just bought an Ultra XR4 from us, but we do have these wheels ready for you, and they look lovely on your Ultra. What do you reckon? And he went, yeah, just stick those on as well then.
So I bought a frame for my wheels.
Yeah.
I like your style.
It's just great. Yeah. And the really nice thing was, I thought I had a moment of guilt. So I threw in, more for Anna than anything else, so I threw in a pair of Bianchi champagne flutes. And that evening, after Richard had taken delivery of the bike, I got a photo on WhatsApp, which I still have to this day. It's absolutely lovely, which was on the coffee table was these two fully charged champagne flutes with the bike up against the sofa behind it. So, and he just went, Anna and I are having a lovely evening in.
Mate, you were allowed to take the bike into the lounge.
Do you know, I've got them hanging on the wall in the house. All my bikes are in the house.
Now, here's the thing. Okay, so for those of you watching on YouTube, this is probably easier. But my office, the wall behind me, which currently has some pictures and stuff on it, I have a very, very cool bike wall mount for the Ultra XR4. And the plan is to have it on that wall because it ain't going in my bike box outside.
No, it's not.
However, negotiations are underway with the boss. And I figure one day she might just come home and see in my office is getting a bit crowded now. I've got my sim and my bike on the wall. I think I might be in trouble. But I did suggest maybe we could have it in the sitting room, but that didn't go down well. But when we've got our barn, when we're going to convert that next year, there will be, all my bikes will be on the wall, either in the garage downstairs. I'm going to have a really nice garage with bike wall mounts and stuff, or upstairs.
Nice.
So everything will be on display. That's the plan.
Yes.
But yes.
That'd be lovely.
Because I have this problem. I don't know whether you have the problem. Can you sell your old bikes?
No.
That's this other...
Right, well, no, so actually...
I'm not the only one.
No, I did. So my Checkpoint, which I was using as my gravelly commute bike, that died.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting the Arcadex that I've got now. And I because it was during this bike craze, I managed to sell that broken old Checkpoint.
Yeah.
So, but that's the only bike I've ever sold, and I only sold it because it was broken.
Yeah. I'm not very good at selling bikes, if I'm honest.
You see, I've not got a problem with that. I've not got
No, you sell other people's bikes, mate. You sell Richard's bike. But he told us about that the other week.
Brilliant.
He was still upset about it.
The good thing is about my brother Richard is that he moves on.
Yeah.
But yes, clearly I sell bikes because that's my business. But my own personal bikes, if I'm not using it, I'll sell it. I haven't got a problem with that. So I have 3 bikes. I've got my road bike, my gravel bike, and my mountain bike, and that's it. It's more than enough.
Yeah.
In fact, Rosie's worse than I am. Rosie will keep bikes. So Rosie's got 6, I think, now. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm about to have 6, I think. My problem with bikes, and I actually think I'd love to be like this with cars, but unfortunately cars often cost a lot more money and you end up having to chop a car in to get the next car. Bikes are a bit different. You kind of buy them. Although I bought a couple of bikes on 0% finance, which is just a nice way to spread the payments over a couple of years. They're typically outright purchases, right? So you paid for them. After 2 years, they're yours. And then the other thing is they tend not to be worth that much money after 2 or 3 years worth of riding. You're certainly not going to get your money back. But the big thing for me is that as soon as I do a big ride on a bike, the memories I make on that bike, on that ride, are ones that mean I'll never want to sell it. Be that my old Giant Defy, my first road bike. I did Paris-Roubaix on that, and it's still got. I've not cleaned it since. It's still got the, on the top bar. I've got the root on the top bar and stuff, and I'll really struggle to sell it. I'll probably never ride it again because I've got. I've got bikes. I've got the Ultra coming. I've got my Venge. I've got my mountain bike, my e-mountain bike. I'm borrowing an Arcadex at the moment from Paul. I don't need any more bikes, but I don't think I could sell it. I don't know what it is. I don't know, listeners. If you're listening and you've got the same bike problem, then please put it in the comments and let us know, because I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones.
No, I think so.
But what do you think it is about bikes? For me, I'm fascinated on lots of fronts when it comes to bikes. I love the just the look and the design of them, and I think when you see a really top end bike, there's just something that makes you go, whoa. And then there's the engineering aspect of it. And I guess if you've kept a hold of bikes, you've got, like you were saying, you had one of the first bikes with disc brakes on, or you've got your first bike with, I don't know, electronic group set, or for me, the Ultra will be my first road bike with disc brakes on it. So you've got these kind of landmarks in technology. And I'm just fascinated by that. And I think it's just when you look at the way the components are made and the way the bikes work, I don't know what it is. It just fascinates
I agree. The aesthetics, definitely. I'm a big sucker for something looking nice. And I think also I fall victim to thinking I look like the people in the adverts look like on it. I think if I've seen enough photos of me on it, then I'm done. That looks horrible. But I imagine myself being as good.
You look a lot more slight and a lot more slender than Paul or I, so I'm sure there's not a problem in that department.
I concur.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an element of when you buy. I don't know if you can hear
Is
the
that
dogs.
the dogs?
Tracy's just come
Brilliant.
home. The dogs are going. Do they not know we're recording the podcast? But yeah, no, I think the same. I know when I got my Venge, the driver for me getting my Venge was that was Mark Cavendish's bike. That McLaren did the Venge for him, and then they opened it up for normal people to buy. And although Mark Cavendish is about half the height of me and a sprinter, and I'm definitely not a sprinter, that was definitely in that tie-up, I think. But I think with the Bianchi, I just think they're just beautiful, beautiful design, and the colours and the history and all of that kind of stuff all adds together to make the very alluring.
Yeah, and I guess you won't know this yet, but they're also very, very nice to ride. The Ultra XR4 is lovely.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. And there's a couple of things. So one, my road bike was on 23mm tires. I've just changed it to 25mm tires, and that's made a big difference. But the Ultra is going to be on 28s and tubeless, and it's going to have the countervail, and I can't wait. And the other thing is, my road bike is now 8 years old. So, technology wise, it's an 8-year-old bike. It was a sprint bike, so it's pretty uncomfortable to ride. And I think it's going to be a night and day experience when I ride the Ultrex. I can't wait.
Yeah, completely. I mean, you've gone a number of generations ahead. And I think people still fall victim to carbon fiber is just carbon fiber and alloy is just alloy and that sort of thing. And it's just not. You've got different levels and different qualities. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head. And it's nice that, Richard's here to, you've done a lot of miles on a countervail bike now. And it is just when you're on that long ride, it just never feels fatiguing, does it?
No, it's surprising actually, because you don't think it looks hard. It looks like a solid metal bike, but for some reason it does just take the edge off.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I can't to do a nice big long ride. That's going to be pretty special. What do you think of your Arcadex? Because I have to say the Arcadex I've got just has blown me away.
I think so.
There's a story on the Arcadex as well.
There's always a story.
Okay. Does it involve bike pounds again? What colour's yours?
It's the Celeste blue and the Celeste and blue. Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the same as mine. Yeah.
So the Arcadex then. So I had the Trek checkpoints before, which I was using as my gravel bike. I've got heavily into gravel now. It's my new thing. And I was taking that poor old thing out on gravel every week, smashing it about to the point that the drivetrain fell apart, and I think something wrong with the cranks as well. I think I may have worn one. I don't know. Anyway, so I came in and showed it to Keith, and Keith was like, "Yeah, we can fix it. We got bits. There's a bit of a shortage, but we can fix it." And then Paul just walks by and just says, "There's an Arcadex in the window," and the rest is history.
You said he has this way with him.
Yeah.
So what's your in terms of comparison between, because I've not ridden the checkpoint, I know Paul's got one. Is there much difference between the two in terms of riding?
Well, yes. So it's not a fair comparison. My checkpoint was a few years old, and it was on a Tiagra Road group set, and obviously the Arcadex is Di2 with a 1x carbon everything.
Yeah,
including wheels.
That was the story.
Maybe should we talk about the wheels?
More wheels.
Yeah. So I said, "Oh, we've got this Arcadex," and I said, "It's the only one we've got which has got Di2 on it." And he went, "What? Seriously, there's Di2?" I said, "Yeah, Di2 on which, for listeners who don't know what Di2 is, that's Shimano's electronic nomenclature. So electronic gears on the Shimano GRX, which is the gravel group set. So it's set up as a single chainring on the front, same as yours, Peter. Single chainring on the front, 11 speed on the back, but using electronic shifting, but still on the gravel system." So it's like, "Oh, right, well, that's absolutely fantastic. I'll take a look at that." And then I just said to him, I said, "Do you know the thing that would just absolutely finish this bike off?" And he said, "What's that?" I said, "We've got a set of Bontrager Aeolus Pro 3V carbon wheels, the high volume 25mm internal width, with a set of 40mm Michelin gravel tyres on." And he said, "Oh, yeah, it's got to have those on." And I'll tell you something, it transformed the bike. It looks brilliant. And how does it ride, right?
Absolutely amazing. I was, so I don't know if I can plug. I've got a bit of a YouTube channel that I'm doing, and I talk about.
Plug away. Yeah. I'll put a link in the description
channel,
below.
Rusty Ways Gravel. Go check it out. Amazing. So I was thinking about this. I was doing a video last week about the Arcadex and what is the Arcadex? Is it a gravel bike really, or because when you think about graveling, you think about you want people talk about they want like a solid bike and they want it to be rigid and they don't want it cracking and all the rest of it. And everyone always says, well, carbon's it's a bit out there for the gravel scene, maybe for the purist of the gravels, maybe. And then the Arcadex is not a pretty beast, really. I mean, that bit down by the cranks where the motor is going to go, I guess. When you look at the pictures, isn't. I mean, when I first saw it in the pictures, I didn't like it that much until I saw the one from his window. I loved that one. But a full carbon gravel bike with carbon aero wheels, Di2 electronic group set on it. Is that a carbon? Is that a gravel bike?
It absolutely is, because I've seen you do what you've done on your gravel rides.
I mean, yeah, the thing manages it absolutely amazing. It's rapid. It is absolutely rapid.
Yeah.
It's super light as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the gravel scene's having a bit of a crisis of, like what is it? What is it to be gravel?
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to just people's lack of understanding, isn't it? Because for me, people love a steel bike and they talk about steel bikes, and I totally understand that, because there's something about a steel frame with the slender tubes and sometimes the sort of lugged finishes to them. They look very pretty and they look very retro. And also, steel does give a sort of nice spring to it. But then I also don't like the loss of power that you get with steel. I don't like the fact that you do get lateral flex within it. I don't like the fact that you, when you're engaging a corner, it doesn't feel as responsive and as agile. Now, some people will ride steel, they'll go, oh, you're talking rubbish. My bike feels really agile and really stiff, probably because they've not ridden a high-end carbon frame before. Whereas aluminium, you've got a similar weight to carbon fiber, but aluminium does have quite a lot of ride resonance through it. And that's what you'll have probably picked up mostly between your Checkpoint and your Arcadex, is the fact that when you go and do 70 miles on a 70-mile gravel ride on an alloy bike versus a carbon bike, for me, with carbon fiber, you get the weight of an aluminium bike, but with the ride compliance and the lack of harshness of a steel bike.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about carbon fiber, and particularly on things like the Ultra and the Infinito CV models, with the countervail incorporated into that as well, you lose it even more of the harmonic vibration that travels through the bike. So, I mean, that for me is what I'm waiting for Bianchi to do, is an Arcadex CV.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine that? An Arcadex CV.
That, and if they could just slightly increase the width of the tires, they can fit around there. There as well.
Yeah, but why? Because you've got that's a really interesting point. So you've got 40 mils in there now.
Yes.
Yeah.
42s,
40s. Yes.
Yeah.
So do you need bigger?
So
that's quite big.
The power gravel tires I've got, then the Michelin power gravels, the minimum you can run them on is 43 psi, I think, and I run them right on the cusp of that. And I've had two out of the blue, like absolute tragic punches on the rear wheel.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's just gone straight through the tire.
Right.
Now I'm of the opinion, rightly or wrongly, that if I can put a slightly wider tire on, I could lower the pressure a little bit.
Yeah.
And that may also take out some of the harshness that I'm not getting because I've not got the countervail. So I'm thinking from that point of view.
But where do you stop? Because you're now moving into a hardtail mountain bike.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
It's an interesting point about the tire pressures, actually, because one of the bits I found going into gravel, because it is trying to work out what tire pressure to run, because I've still got kind of road head, 90, 100 psi kind of head on, and I know I don't run it nearly that high. I've not got the 40. I've got, what's mine? Is it 38, 36?
37s.
And I've got tubed as well.
Yeah, 37s on tubes.
Nearly rolls. Yeah. So I've tried running it a bit lower, but I've had a couple of pinch flats, and I'm guessing that's because I was too low. So I run about 60 psi, I think, something like that, 60 to 65 psi. But yeah, it's that debate about what tire pressure do you run, because I find the bike uphill is, I mean, when I first got it, I went on all my kind of trail routes around my house and just destroyed my Strava times because I've been riding them on a full suspension mountain bike. And I get back and some of the climbs I was knocking, like 2 minutes off of a 7-minute climb. It was just ridiculous. But coming down the other side, I sometimes find I'm feeling myself wanting to be on a full suspension mountain bike when I'm going down the other side, because it can be a bit bouncy and a bit bumpy. You have to go much slower.
You have to pick your way through it more.
But I love it.
I do. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, the bit I love the most though is you can, on a ride, you can have a good chunk of tarmac and a good chunk of off road, and it's not really a massive compromise. Whereas I hate going on the road on my mountain bike, because it's just dull, basically, because it's a real chore to ride my mountain bike on the road. So yeah, no, it's been brilliant. I love my Alcadex, and I love the front forks. I think the shape and width and stuff of the front forks makes the bike look absolutely awesome.
It's good, because you've just done the Duke's Weekender, haven't you, on your gravel bike?
I did. Yes.
What was that all about?
So the Duke's Weekender in Aberfoyle, or Gravelfoyle, as it's being rebranded to, the new gravel centre of UK, Scotland.
Is that right?
I think they're going for it.
Oh wow!
Over there, it's really, really good actually. So it's a 2-day event. The first day was a timed hill climb. Now, because I'm not crazy, I didn't do that day. No, I'm not having any of that. So,
a timed hill climb, that just sounds
it looked awful.
How long's the hill, and what sort of time are you expecting?
I don't know. Well, I did the hill on the second day. So the second day was the enduro day, which was a 72k gravel circuit. And interestingly, actually, it had timed segments in it. So it was 6 stages. So the circuit itself, the whole route wasn't timed, but you had these 6 stages that were timed.
Yeah.
So you could go between the stages at gravel, enjoying the country pace, and then go for it in the stages, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I really like that kind of format.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first part.
Yeah, they did that on the Paris-Roubaix Sportif. I did.
Oh, brilliant. But
they got a couple of the pavé sections at the time.
I don't fancy those either. Pavé.
Perfect bike for it.
But yeah, straight out of the doors from Aberfoyle was this climb straight up into I don't even know. I forget where it even was. Just up a hill that went forever. It was horrible. So I didn't want to race up that. But so that had gravel bikes, and it had mountain bikes, hardtail mountain bikes, full sus mountain bikes. And I have to say, over the day, I don't think the bike made much of a difference overall. People are saying, "Oh, should I take a mountain bike on this, or should I take a gravel bike on this?" And I think it's more to do with the rider.
Interesting.
Really, I mean, but for me, on my bike, it was absolutely perfect. I smashed around it. I went around far too fast. I didn't see any scenery. I just got into that weird kind of sporty. Well, it always happens to me on sportives anyway.
It does.
I just get stuck in a zone, and I just go for it. And that bike was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I wish I'd gone slower.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I had I've had the fortune and misfortune of doing 2 sportives.
Because Loch Ness didn't count because I wasn't with you there. I was there on the same day. But so we did Ochil Hills and
we did Ochil
Struggle.
Hills and Struggle.
Yeah.
Yes. So we did Struggle Yorkshire together, and that was a good day. That was probably the most brutal day I've ever had on a bicycle before. Oh my goodness. I think about 750 people actually started, and I think 340 people finished on that day. It was
the weather though, wasn't it?
It was blowing a hoolie. It was sideways rain. It was everything. It was absolutely horrible, but stunning.
Everything that makes you want to give up.
I had my blimmin' Ultra out in that.
I know.
No, I was crying as I was going around.
Yeah. So this guy has basically got the biggest calves I've ever seen on any other human being, and just a weapon. Anyway, there we go.
Not true.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it just means you have to do lots of cycling, and then you get legs like that, maybe. Although my legs are just so long, even when I was at my fittest cycling fitness, which is a few years ago now, my legs are so long, I don't have calves. They're just like a stick that drops down from my knee. there's power there, but it's just stretched out over such a long distance that it's impossible for me to have.
That's
big
what it
calves.
is.
I've just decided I can't. I'll never have
So
big calves, and even
Yeah.
my thighs. My thighs might be quite big, but again, they're so long. It doesn't happen. I just look like a wading bird, basically.
Brilliant. So effectively, Richard's got the equivalent of a 26-inch mountain bike wheel leg, and you've got the equivalent of a 700c skinny road bike leg.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they're long. Yeah, they're really long.
Yeah,
they're long and they spin. I do high cadence and spin. So that's me.
Yeah,
all day long.
Brilliant.
So
you're quite useful to follow, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, no, Paul's used to follow because he cuts a big hole in the air, I would imagine.
Oh, massive, massive. Yeah. I tried to draft Rosie once, and it's like drafting the gable end of a crisp. Just completely useless.
So here's the thing. So how long have you had your Ultra for now?
I don't know.
2 years.
Is it a 2019 model? I think.
Yeah. 2 years.
So how and how long between bikes do you then start looking for the next bike? And or have you thought about another bike in your stable?
So for like road bikes, no. I mean, I have no plans to change. I love that bike that I've got right now.
Yeah.
What
color is it?
I never planned on buying a gravel bike. It's matte black and matte celeste.
Oh,
so but it's the old. So it's not the same design as your one. Your one's got the huge Bianchi up there, the down tube. Mine's the design before. But yeah, it looks really nice.
Oh, that does sound really good, actually.
But
might actually be nice to have it for when you come up.
Yeah, come over, go out for a ride with
us.
us.
To put next to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good
That's
fun.
A good plan. Yeah. You can shoot some stuff for your channel, and I can
and then
shoot
the
some
two
for my channel. And you can
indeed, and the two of you can ride, and I can just film it from the van.
Oh,
yeah, that's an awesome plan. I like that thinking. As long as it's not raining, because I can't get my bike wet.
Well, yeah. But no, so I had no plans on buying another road bike, and then they invented this gravel segment.
Yeah.
And then I now have a gravel bike.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then not tempted by an e-bike.
Not at the moment. I don't know. I like the idea of them. I think I need to be a few years older yet. And then
like my age.
Yeah. When I start getting a bit grayer, I might go for it.
You're as old as we are. Yeah. I've told my next door neighbour's got an e-mounted bike, so I said to him yesterday. I saw him yesterday. I said, "Oh, I'm getting my bike in a couple of weeks' time." So we're already planning our first outing. So that should be good. I'm just looking forward to. I'm looking forward to just experiencing an e-bike, an e-mountain bike, on a ride. Having only very briefly ridden one around a car park and talked to Paul a lot about them, I'm just looking forward to just going out and actually, smashing up hills that I try and avoid because they're horrible, or just going for longer. Because on a mountain bike, or even on my gravel bike, hour and a half to 2 hours off road, that's normally me done by then. And I haven't travelled that far either, because I do about 9 miles an hour on a mountain bike and about 15 to 16 mile an hour on a road bike. So it kind of limits your distance that you can go. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, that'll be really good.
So okay, so that's the bike thing. What's this crossover with cars then? Because one of the things I found really interesting when we've been doing this, the amount of guys I know. I've got a guy, Greg, who I'm a member of a car owners club, and he's got a beautiful Aston Martin Vantage, the new Vantage, but he's also got a Pinarello Dogma F10, new one, beautiful looking thing, and he's exactly the same. He's like loves his bikes and absolutely loves his cars. And there's quite a few guys in this club that have got some really special cars and got a really special bike in the garage. I went in a guy's got a Superformance GT40, and he's got a McLaren Venge road bike.
Right.
So what is it? What do you think that overlap is? Do you think it's the same thing we look at? We were talking about aesthetics and technology in a road bike. We do the same thing with cars.
I mean, I don't buy bikes and cars to please other people. It's purely for pleasing me and how I feel with it. I think there is an element of posing, I think. I don't get that. It's definitely about what appeals to me, and it's well, I think first and foremost, it's a very understanding other half, because these things aren't cheap. So, but yeah, it's the looks and the feel and the design, I think, and I think guys in general, and definitely we seem to draw ourselves to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just I don't know whether it's because I know a lot of the kind of Formula One drivers, they like their road bikes, and they kind of, I think they've promoted that crossover into cycling. An understanding of the half is hugely important. I don't know if I told you this story when I did the tour. I did the last 5 stages of the Tour de France route in 2010 for a charity. You could do one stage or all 22. It was the same route, the same schedule, so you had the same transfers and everything. That's the bit actually I didn't even think about, was the transfers between the different legs on the tour. You can be in a coach for 4 or 5 hours after you've been riding. Now, if you're a top level rider and you're on the tour, and the stage will take you like 4.5 hours, if you're like me, the stage will take you like 10 hours, and then you've got to do 6 hours in a thing. Anyway, at the end, my mate, all our wives, we flew them over so they met us in Paris for the end, and we had this lovely meal on this boat going up and down the River Seine. And my mate's wife was talking to Tracy, my wife, and she was like, "These bikes are so expensive, aren't they? I mean, Darren's bike cost £500." And I just listened to this, and it was a full carbon bike. I mean, it was it was definitely not £500. And I just looked at Darren, and he kind of gave me that look of death. Don't say a word, Ped, otherwise you're dead. Like, it's the bike pound story. And then Dan, who Paul knows, he's my mate who, in fact, he's coming up with me when I come up in a couple of weeks, so you'll meet him. He'd obviously been to the bike shop with one of his kids, and had mentioned, he bought something for the bike and said, "Now, don't forget, these are bike pounds." All right. And anyway, the next day he's in the car with his wife, and it was a completely different subject, and they were talking about how much something cost, and then the lad popped up from the back, "Is that bike pounds?" Karen's like, "What's a bike pound?" Awkward. So yeah, definitely understanding other half.
Yeah, that also helps. But is it? I think your point, Richard, is actually a really good one. Is, I think you've got people who actually appreciate engineering, and then other people who actually is more about the marketing. So, for example, your pal who's got the Aston Martin Vantage V8 and a Pinarello Dogma.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I think both items are incredibly pretty, but I'm more of an engineer than I am a marketeer.
Yeah.
So to me, I would buy neither of those products, because I know for the same money I could get actually a better engineered product.
Ooh,
and it's not to say that no, but that's the thing, is that I've bought the bike that Team Sky have been very successful on. Could they have been more successful on a countervail equipped Bianchi, right? If you have an Aston, it's not a secret that Aston Martin, for example, is not the most reliable, product. Okay. But both of those items are still incredibly beautiful things to own. So it's not saying he's made the wrong choice. He's made the choice that really suits what he is looking for. So I can I mean, I've seen the Aston Martin Vantage V8, and particularly there's one that I saw on one of my delivery routes, and it was in this really dark blue, this deep blue, and it just looks staggering. I mean, absolutely staggering. And I just go, I know why somebody's bought that, because it just looks beautiful. And likewise, when you see something like a Pinarello Dogma, you go, well, flip, it's still better than 95% of the riders who will ever ride it. Right? Let's not beat about the bush. It's still a phenomenal bit of engineering. But it's one of those things that you look at those two products and you go, somebody's made a decision there, because I can say at the pub I've got an Aston Martin and I've got a Pinarello Dogma.
I mean, I think ultimately
I hope Greg doesn't listen to this podcast.
Well, it's fine. No. It's absolutely. I'd love to hear his opinion, and if he's properly honest, he could turn around and go, I don't care whether a countervail bike is a better bike or whether a Porsche 911 Turbo S is a better car. I flipping love the choices that I've made. I love the way it makes me feel. I love the comments I get when people see me on it. And ultimately, I love the way it drives and I love the way that rides, and you can go and sod off. That's fine, because he's made his decision with his money that is hard earned, and there's no right or wrong.
I think, I was going to say, I think it's all about your feeling and the aesthetics, because
Correct.
I've got more bike than I'm ever going to use.
Yeah.
I don't need all the stuff that's on my bike. I don't need, like, my car at 70 miles an hour is the same speed as every other car at 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Why do I go for the things that are more performance?
Yeah.
I don't need them. So clearly I'm doing it for some other reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has to be.
Mate, if you think you don't need all the things on your bike, then I'm taking that to another level. But yeah, no, I think the thing with bikes is there are so many smaller manufacturers of bikes. So if you think about cars, most of the cars that we consider are pretty high volume manufacturers, right? They're well known. But with bikes, you can be buying some of these kind of more boutique bikes from a manufacturer that might make, I don't know, 1,000 bikes a year. And I think that the challenge you've got is really understanding what the quality of that bike is going to be like. And this is only me talking, having sort of known Paul for a bit now. You look at what it looks like, but then you think, well, okay, how much engineering's gone into that? How good is the carbon fiber? How good is the engineering in the bike? The aesthetics are amazing.
Yeah,
I know, and I'm going to chuck some brands out here that I don't know, Cipollini or De Rossa or I don't know. That those types of bikes. I only mention those two because I have friends with both of those, and they look amazing.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't know how good they are. They just look great.
No, and the thing is,
I'm terrible. I mean, I bought my Venge because it looked good. I bought an aero bike because it looked good and it was in a nice color. I didn't really know what I was buying, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
but I still love it.
Yeah, and the thing is, in the bike industry, the barrier to entry for a bike manufacturer is a lot lower, because they don't have things like the tooling up. They don't have, well, they do have tooling up clearly, but not tooling up for a car. They don't have all of the noise, the safety legislation that they're having to go through. So, to become a car manufacturer, it almost has to be, government subsidized.
Mate, I don't know if you heard him. They had James Dyson on Chris Evans this morning,
Right.
And he was talking. Chris asked him about, because Dyson were doing an electric car, and they pulled the plug on it, and they've stopped doing it. And James Dyson said we realised that to do it properly and to kind of be up with Tesla, we were going to have to spend £25 billion to develop the car, and we haven't got that, so we had to stop doing it.
No. Whereas somebody who's got reasonable composites, if somebody's actually wanting to do a hand built frame, as long as you've got composites knowledge, So you know how to engineer carbon fiber, or you know how to weld steel, and you understand geometrical shapes and how that's going to benefit the rider, your barrier to owning or starting a bicycle brand is a lot less. And in addition to that, you've got factories around the world where you can almost pick frames from a catalogue and have them painted and branded in whatever name that you want. And this is the danger for a lot of customers. Is your point, Peter, is absolutely correct. You honestly don't know what you're buying. The great thing is about buying something from companies like Pinarello, from Bianchi, from Trek, from Specialized, from Giant, and all of these big manufacturers, is that you know they have the history and the provenance, and they've got the engineering know-how and ultimately the infrastructure and the backup to then look after you with that product.
Yeah.
So
And
it really does make
we've
a
talked a lot
difference.
about the servicing and stuff, haven't we, and looking after it. Because I guess actually, if you want to start a bike company, all you really have to make is the frame, right? Because you're not gonna make the group set because you're gonna buy that from one of the three.
Yeah.
You don't need
You
to do
don't.
the wheels because you can buy them in from Mavic
Yeah.
or whoever.
Yeah.
Saddle you buy in, so you need to.
Yeah.
But you could probably buy the handlebars in if you wanted to. You only really need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make the frame.
No, Peter, you don't even have to build the frame. You can buy a frame from a catalogue and have it painted and branded in your name and sell it as your own.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's your problem, and that's why when you look at you look at some brands and you go, oh, hang on, I could get this brand which has got this group set versus your mainstream brands, whether it be your Trek, your Giant, your Specialized, and you go, oh, I'm not getting as high a spec kit for compared to this other brand. Well, not being funny, there aren't many manufacturers on the planet who are buying components and drivetrains from Shimano and SRAM and Fox and RockShox for the money that these massive billion-dollar organizations are buying them for. So if they're cheaper, where's the compromise? And as we've spoken about before, the compromise is usually in the frame. I mean, when you look at, without giving too much away about the Bianchi, bear in mind that the Ultra XR4 frame, fork, handlebar headset, and seat post, so just those sections alone is just under 5,000 quid for just those bits. Sorry, Anna.
Don't say it out loud.
Yeah. That's bike pounds, though. Did you say £500?
£500. Yeah. I don't even think that's the VAT content.
Yeah. No, I think that the challenges as well is, and one of the things we've tried to do with Cycle Sunday, especially in the earlier episodes when we were going through putting the bike together and choosing everything, was we talked about the frames, and to the uneducated or unaware, you'd look at a frame and you just look at what it looks like. You think a bike frame's a bike frame, carbon fiber's carbon fiber, and we've talked till the cows come home that it's really not. You can be lucky. I watched a video a couple of months ago of someone had basically bought a really cheap carbon fiber frame from China, and they'd taken it to a bike specialist in the States, and they'd x-rayed it and looked at it, and actually, he said, in all fairness, it's actually not that bad. And they took it back to the carbon fiber and then sprayed it up and made it look okay. But I can imagine that you could end up in a world of hurts because be that it's not particularly strong. It's rigid in all the wrong places and flexible in all the wrong places, and and that's your challenge, I suppose.
Absolutely. So I think if anything comes from it, that there is safety in buying from just a well-known brand, and that's not just in the bike world. That's in every world, isn't it? Really, I
mean, so. Do you get? I don't know. This is my ignorance. So you remember, like Mercedes, a couple of years back, had a reliability nightmare. They went through a phase of just being awful. Do you get that with bikes?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, it's down to, I think there's a lot of things to unpack from there. So the great thing about the reliability aspect is rarely you get issues with one of the biggest things that plagues a car, of course, is the engine and the transmission. So because the engine is the squishy organic thing sat on the top of it, then actually your unreliability is now down to
you get loads of problems with that when they get old.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's now coming more into play with e-bikes. So, you know, we're fortunate because Trek use Bosch powertrains with all of their e-bikes. And so far, we've been doing Bosch equipped product and have had 0 failures with the engines. We've had a couple of wiring loom issues, which is only 45 minutes to swap out, and we keep those in stock if there is an issue. But that's 2 that we've had in 5 years. So we're really fortunate in the fact that the powertrains that are fitted to the Trek bikes are really good. Then in terms of, as you say, the components, so the gearboxes, let's think about that. That's SRAM and it's Shimano invariably, or Campag to a certain degree. Well, again, these guys have been doing it for so long, they kind of know what they're doing. So that basically then just leaves things like the frames. And again, when you're dealing with big manufacturers, you don't get rust and corrosion issues like you get when a car. So I think Mercedes, they decided to go on a bit of, and apologies, Mercedes, if this isn't true, but I think they went a little bit along the bean counter route, which was what we're going to do is we engineer our cars like tanks, we paint them so they never rust. And then they had a time, was it sort of in the 90s and late 90s, early 2000s, where they went, actually, we want to now try and make some real money out of this. We've got a really powerful brand, but then the products that they produced weren't particularly reliable, weren't particularly well built, and had corrosion issues. So I think you potentially have that issue maybe in the bike industry sometimes, where a manufacturer will go, we've got a really great brand. And I'll tell you where Trek fell down in the, I'd probably say about 2005 to about 2015, they were a bit lazy in terms of their design. So I think they were quite late to market with a number of their products. But from around 2018, 2019 onwards, have just had this massive push that they've nailed colors, they've nailed geometries, they've nailed specifications, they've nailed technology, and they've done really, really well. And Bianchi really stole the march by getting the exclusive license to Countervail. That was one of their biggest wins in the industry, was getting this sole use to Countervail carbon fiber. So yeah,
do you get many frame failures?
Frame failures, not through manufacturing defects. It's really rare, really rare. I think vast majority of write-offs are usually down to poor maintenance, and in the whole. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm guessing the same with drivetrain issues is look after them, keep them clean, keep them serviced.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to end up with,
Yeah.
with failures.
Yeah, and it's not, and again, any listener that's out there, don't think that was a sweeping generalisation of customers don't look after the bikes, and bike shops and bike retailers and manufacturers can do no wrong. No, we make mistakes, but it's one of those things that I think there's very much still a mentality of it's just a bike. And I think a lot of people when riding bikes, it's very much of the fix it when broken mentality. And the problem that you've got with modern bikes, you could do that in the old days with 5, 6, 7, 8 speed transmissions. Now we're getting into these 10s, 11s, 12s, and even 13 speed transmissions. The tolerances are getting so finite that they require constant maintenance. I mean, you're getting to levels of, let's use it, Formula One and aerospace technologies in your bicycle. You can't have a 6, 7, 8 kilo bike with the weight of the rider on top and the forces coming through from the ground and just expect that thing to just keep going and going and going and going. It's got to be constantly serviced and maintained.
Maybe that's what we need to drive the second-hand bike market, MOTs and services. That might keep the value up.
Wow.
That could be the subject of the next podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to wrap things up because I've just realised the time. How quickly did that hour go? But I mean, I've been in a bike shop. You've probably had people stood in your bike shop, maybe more mountain bikes, where they've just had a bill for a drivetrain, cassette, gears, bottom bracket, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember it was about 18 months, 2 years ago, and this guy had got this couple of £100 bill. And he's moaning. He said, "I can't believe I only had the bike 8 months."
Mm-hmm.
And the guy in the bike shop went, "Well, do you clean it every time you get back from your bike ride?" And he was like, "No." He goes, "Well, there you go then. Yeah. That's why it's fallen apart. Yeah. That's why you needed a new chain, new cassette, new rear derailleur, because you're not cleaning it. So, give your bike a clean when you've ridden it, people.
Yeah.
Lube it up and look after it.
Do it correctly.
And it'll look after you." Exactly. Well, I can't believe that hour's gone. Richard, Rusty, whichever, mate, will you come back again? Because you've been brilliant, and I've really enjoyed talking. And actually, hopefully, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, because it would be great to see your bike and put your bike next to mine. You could come and watch the bike being built. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd challenge Paul to try and get both the bikes in the same photo frame.
Yeah. What? Or with more than one wheel?
Yeah. See if we can do that.
Yeah. Has your bike got 2 wheels?
I'm pretty sure it does, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully mine's going to have 2 wheels too.
I don't have to do this, anyway.
Anyway, guys, put in the comments below, what are your thoughts on this crossover love with nice cars and nice bikes? And we could chuck in there nice watches as well, because it seems to be a common thing across. But they all tend to be expensive things.
Yes.
But for now, I'm going to wind this one up. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Rusty, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Mr. Bowker, I shall touch base with you next week.
Brilliant.
For a podcast, and then we are, as I said, we are planning now the filming that takes place in literally 2 weeks' time when I come up to Edinburgh, which is very, very exciting. Although I'm actually in Scotland next week doing the North Coast 500.
Yes.
So I might pop in on the way past.
Nice.
But for now, it comes that point in time where I say, I've been Pete Greaves.
I've been Paul Bowker.
I've been Rusty.
Yay! Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. We'll see you on the next one. But for now, ride safe, everyone.
Ride safe.